I call the member for Dawson.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. And look, I agree with what a lot of the member for Lawler has just said. I think we all do, in terms of we want to empower teachers, have better teacher quality, have teachers actually engaging with students rather than just running off lesson plans, ensuring young children who might come from lower socio-economic backgrounds are raised up into prosperity. They are all things that everyone in this House can agree with. The issue is, how do we get there? And unfortunately, the knee-jerk reaction from the Labor Party is always just to throw more money at it, and a lot more money at it. And what they do is not budget where that money is coming from. I mean, we've heard, it's going to come from $40 a pack cigarettes. I don't know that that's ever going to go down in the electorate, but anyway, $40 a pack cigarettes. We're going to somehow reap a whole heap of money from companies like Google and Apple, even though there's absolutely no plan as to how we're going to get that funding. So it's pie-in-the-sky stuff that is going to be unfunded. It's going to be unfunded, and it's going to require us going further and further into debt. And if you want to see a great example of how the Labor Party last threw money at the education sector without any significant outcome in terms of learning, have a look at the Building the Education Revolution plan. I mean, it was basically about schools having money thrown at them to build school halls and tuck shops, in some cases which they did not need, at the expense of other things that they did need. And I've got to say, it turned out that these are very high-cost projects which were a massive waste of public money, and that was found out through reports by the Auditor-General and numerous reports about that epic fail of a program. I've got to say, I went to one school in my electorate where I was shown by the principal, the BER new stage that they'd actually gotten built, and then they showed me a room right beside it. The building right beside it was about 3 times as big as the BER one. And the difference was that they'd actually built that themselves with their own raised money, but as soon as the BER government one come along, the price of the one that they built with the BER was actually double the cost of the one that they'd funded themselves. It just showed how throwing money at a problem doesn't fix it. In fact, it created more problems because the cost of the construction of those buildings went up. In Queensland, to go through the figures, Labor's own task force found that in Queensland, New South Wales and Victoria, they were overpaid for buildings by more than 25% on average compared to Catholic schools. So that's in state schools. It was in Queensland. BER projects in Queensland, New South Wales and Victoria overpaid for buildings by more than 25% on average compared to Catholic schools, and by 55% more compared to independent schools. The Australian, back in 2011, reporting on the subject, reported that the third and final report into the BER, conducted by former investment banker Brad Orgel, found that Victoria and New South Wales have not delivered value for money for public schools under the program, with public schools charging an average up to 60% more for school buildings despite no differences in quality. I could go on and on about this waste of taxpayers' money when it comes to the education sector that the Labor Party have engaged in. Another article from The Australian in 2013, August, notes that in the 935 days between becoming Prime Minister on December 3rd, 2007 and Julia Gillard's coup of June 24, 2010, Rudd left Australians with at least $153 billion in unfunded fiscal burdens while wasting $100 billion of the community's resources. But let's go on to Labor's plan here. I mean, it has already been panned by experts. The Mitchell Institute of Victoria University, one of our premier education policy institutes. Megan O'Connell from that institute, she's the policy program director, wrote just the other day, the plan has sound aims of creating a high-quality, high-equity education system. However, by treading the safe path, Labor's plan will not produce the learners we need for our future prosperity. We know that the old Labor plan of just throw money at it has not worked in the past, Deputy Speaker, because as education expenditure has increased, our academic results have fallen. And we can see that because in the last from 87 to 88 to 2011-12, Commonwealth and state and territory spending spending on education increased by 100%, but student enrolment only grew by 18%, and student outcomes declined.